Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an excellent game to share with you from round 7 of Uzchess Cup 2025. This was played on June 25th. On the white end, Nodirbek Abdusattorov playing against Parham Maghsoodloo. Okay, the opening we have here, an open Sicilian, Taimanov, knight c3, queen c7, queen d3. From d3, the queen eyes g3, challenging the queen, pressure on g7. Black's response is a6, cuts out the knight jumps, secures the queen post. White is not concerned about being attacked here by the knight. So knight e5, queen g3 is cool. If knight b4, queen g3, less cool. With knight b4, you'll want to factor in this pressure here on c2. It says you still could play queen g3, but you must do your homework on such a line. Black can exchange, play e5. What are you doing exactly after e5? The knight is not around. Is c2 ready to fall? Fork there. A simple response here to knight b4 would be queen e2, staying out of the dark square bishop's way. Ready for bishop e3 and a quick queenside castles, rook on a half-open file. If black is playing in such a way, a question is really thrown immediately back to black. Are you any better off with the knight on b4 than c6? The short answer, no. And there's also this detail about the bishop. There's now one less reasonable option for it. White doesn't have to worry about any pinned c3 knight now. Okay, how it is played here. a6, forget about this knight jumping around. We have knight captures knight. Black recaptures with the queen, plays within the structure. Computer says you have your pick. It's a matter of taste, how you want to recapture here on c6. I want to draw just a little bit of attention to one of the pawn recaptures, regardless of which pawn recaptures here on c6. The computer here drawn to that post on g3. Asking black, do you want the queens on or not? In the case of a queen exchange, white has a little something to work with on the h file. And if the queen exchange is declined, black placing a pawn here in the center, something you could maybe say, we have an offensive white queen and a black queen more on the defensive side. Okay, how it is played here, the queen recaptures. What is a difference between queen on c6 versus c7? What is she no longer doing? Controlling f4. White makes use of this detail and eyes this weak point d6. From here, black plays knight to e7. Computer is not a fan of this, calls it about +1, and it stays that way for quite some time. Why not play knight f6? If knight f6, there's e5. And this knight doesn't have a good forward response. Knight d5, you can chop. Black is going to be losing material shortly. So knight f6 would not be a good idea. Here's how the computer wants to play it. It wants to put the bishop first on b7, and only after this battery is formed. Only after black has more control over d5 and e4. Only at this point does it want to play knight to f6. Difference here, e5 can now be met with knight d5. Black isn't losing material in such a line. Okay, how it is played here, knight e7. Do know black is not any closer to castling kingside after this last move. Knight still has to take another step. Bishop still has to move. And only then are you ready to go. Still 2 tempi away. Also, the knight doesn't have a great forward move here. It has g6 with tempo, but looking a bit deeper, the knight really, in general, is not a piece that stands well on this square. You're really asking for a rook pawn advance to scare that piece. Okay. From here, we have queenside castles, b5, h4. already sniffing this one square out by the knight. That's one idea behind h4, and depending on how far it's allowed to advance, there's rook lifts that can be available to white. h3 is already available. If h5 is allowed, rook h4 may be available. You'll rook up and over, maybe pressure on that g7 pawn. All right, from here we have bishop to b7. Something I questioned, once this b5 move is in, what if black plays b4 here? What are we doing with the knight? Is the knight running in reverse? It's not. If b4, the knight is diving in here to d5. This is an idea we'll frequently see out of the Smith-Morra gambit. This is an excellent follow-up here. This is big trouble for black. If black takes the knight in such a position, this is not your ordinary, this is not a one-point pawn, that is for sure. I'll play out another move or two. Let's say queen plays to b6 here, d6. This is a disaster, completely open file. This pawn is crushing not only the bishop, but the rook. Bishop can't move, rook can't move, the king is going to be uncastled, and there is a lot of material still on board. Black is not surviving this. So, not a good idea to scare the knight to this excellent square. Knight's not running in reverse in response to b4. We have bishop b7. Follow up here, h5. Forget about this pivot. Now where does the knight go? Exactly. It's already uncomfortable here for black. From here, we have rook to d8. Now, let's revisit b4 in this position. Things are significantly different if b4 is played here. If b4, knight d5 would be losing. If knight d5, you get this capture, another capture, you don't have that pesky pawn around anymore. So what would you do as white if b4 is played here? You would have to run in reverse. Knight e2. And you could play in this way without fear of dropping e4. Queen takes e4. Queen takes d7. Game over. Okay. Black plays rook d8 here. Now that this is secure, this may be right around the corner. White says, not so fast. Covers this advance. Really like this play here. Covers this advance with a piece. Why a piece? Well, we're probably looking at an opposite sides castles game. Do we want to move pawns near our own king? Maybe invite a future b4 with a fork, cracking open a file. The piece here has that responsibility. The pawns stay on home base. Another detail with queen d4, there's a pin. h6 is now right around the corner. All right, black's play from here, f6. This is a top move, shutting down this diagonal. Also, a square has opened up for the king. Black, at this point, looking forward to castling by hand. Also, e5 may be right around the corner. From here, we have bishop d6, knight c8, dark square bishop exchange, follow up, rook lift, queen b6. Do we want a queen exchange or not? No. Queen backs off. White has the safer king. Let's keep the queens on. From here, bishop c6 is played. Quite a bit of time, I should note, was spent at this stage by black. Nearly a half hour. Now, one of the moves that was almost certainly being considered here is b4, my favorite move to cover thus far in the game. What would happen if b4 is played? Why did black maybe not shoot for this line. Here's how play might develop. In the case of b4, knight a4, hitting the queen, queen a5 hitting the knight. The knight can be glued in there. And if bishop to c6, there's a3. There is a pin in the position here. Also, if black picks up a pawn first, this would open a line towards the black king, who is still stuck in the center here. If bishop c6 in this position, yet again, there's a3. The idea, if bishop captures knight, white can first insert, pawn captures b4, and only then recapture here on a4. The problem here with moving the knight in such a position, a2 is going to collapse. So this is an important move that is available to white with such a line, and maybe a reason why black, at the end of the day, does not go forward with this b4 advance, doesn't try to go pawn hunting or work on the sidelined knight. Okay, from here, after queen d2, it is bishop c6. Maybe now b4 is available. No forward response, at least on a4. Follow up from here, rook e1. Queen c5 is played now. If b4 in this position, the knight is ready to dive into d5. Pawn takes, discovered check. The bishop is ready to fall. So a lot of attention on this b4 move. This is something you definitely need to be factoring in if you're playing the white pieces here. Where am I going exactly with that knight? Is it appropriate to move forward? Am I okay moving forward? Must I retreat? Okay, as it stands now, you have a nice forward response if b4. Queen c5 here. And white at this point doesn't even wait for b4, hops into d5 straight away. Black now castling by hand. Knight b4, targeting the bishop. Bishop b7, and now h6. White is punching holes in black's king side. Black does not want to see the h file open up. Responds with g6, f6, officially a hole. f6 challenged right away. Maybe looking to carve out another dark square. g5 may be available to the queen shortly. The queen really wants to one day get to that g7 square. This pawn will forever be a thorn in black's side, even if the queens are exchanged. Black's response, king g8. If black captures on e5, there's knight d3 with the fork. Knight will recapture, land a check. That's not a variation you should really be allowing. So king g8, knight d3 still, queen d4, queen in white's house. White doesn't want to see that for long, so plays g3 here. Nice multi-purpose move. Rook h4 now supported, challenging the queen, and a path has opened up for the bishop, who is not really playing just yet. Its presence not yet felt. From here, knight b6 has an eye on c4, so naturally we tame that knight. b3, right? Not b3 just yet. b3, queen a1 is checkmate. So let's first kick the queen out of our house here. Queen d5, and only now tame the knight. There's two things that really stick out to me with this position. The kings, white has the safer king in this opposite side's castles game, even though black castled by hand. Safer king for white. Also superior knight. This knight under control. This knight continues to be a struggling piece in this game. All right, from here, rook on a half-open file. The c pawn, now in a pin. E takes f, rook takes f follows. We're at move 26. Each player has about 12 minutes remaining. From here, it is c3. King b2 or c3 are weighed the same. we're still looking at around a +1 evaluation. If you're playing king to b2, though, you're asking for maybe some unnecessary complications. It may be tempting to play in this way, getting off of the same file as the rook, getting out of the pin, but you are also now within reach of the knight, and there could be some tricks. Knight c4 is definitely scary. Computer says you could allow this, but you would really be asking for unnecessary complications, putting the king on b2. And the queen is unprotected now with the king on b2. Knight attacked, possible fork in the air. It says you could wiggle out of this. Some rook e5 and knight c5. Okay, unnecessary complications. If king b2 is played, white stays in this pin, plays c3. At some point, rook d4 may be there once the pawn is no longer pinned. Rook d4, there's queen captures rook as it stands now. C pawn powerless. From here we have d6. d6 is a decisive error. The computer here is drawn to rook f5 or queen d6, opening up a new square for the minors. Queen d6, knight d5 can be an idea, converging on c3. Okay, I believe black did about as good as you can do in such a position, has defended really well in this position here, but finally slips up with d6, sort of unforced error. e6 is now a hole. This bishop, not yet playing, now it plays with great effect. Bishop h3 now. e6 a target, e6 pinned. Black's response is g5. G5 pawn is going to be a target soon. Why not something other than g5? I tested the following out. Let's say this rook goes into a defensive mode. Here's how white can respond. Rook f4 is strong, looking to remove one of the defenders of e6. There's a cute line here. If black takes on f4, the idea would not be to take with the knight. You could take with the queen. Give up this knight, because in the end, you'll be able to coordinate with this thorn. Queen f6 is there, threatening mate. Queen also secures c3. Big trouble here for black. Lost. Okay, black's play after bishop h3, g5, g5 now a target, rook h5. Follow up from here, king h8. I believe this g5 move was played to open up the rook's eyes to h6. Black really wants to get rid of this pawn with some continuation. Rook h5 here, king h8 is played. If black tries to defend g5, it's not working out. If rook g6, we'd have a cute sequence here, a back-to-back fork that will, by force, win the queen. We would see bishop takes e6, a diagonal fork, and after rook captures bishop, rook captures g5, a rank and file fork. Okay, there is no defending g5 at this stage. King h8, rook takes g5, rook takes c3. Now, white's response is king b2. It says you could go straight in for this capture and still be winning. Let me show you what that might look like. Queen takes rook check. H pawn falls, but then e6 falls. The white king is still safer, maybe a little bit more exposed without that c pawn around, but still safer shelter. Only one pawn for the black king. Superior queen position in this final position here. Rook in a pin. Yeah, queen a little bit offside. This is still winning for white. How white plays it, though, does not meet rook takes c3 with queen captures rook, king b2, stays trained here on g5. There's a problem on d5 and c3 now. What are you supposed to do? The try from here is queen captures knight. White's going to be up the exchange shortly after that. If you take with the rook, we're once again going to see white up the exchange. There would be rook captures queen, rook captures queen, rook captures rook, and there we go. White's winning here, being up the exchange. Okay, how it is played here after king b2, queen captures knight, queen captures rook, queens are off, knight check, king d2, and from here e5 is played. If rook captures f2, there's rook e2. We're going to see a rook exchange, or maybe this e pawn is going to fall next. If black is avoiding the rook exchange, it's lost, however you look at it from this point on. The play from here is with e5, rook g7. Where do you go with the bishop? There's back rank mating ideas in the air. Pawn remains a thorn. Bishop c6, rook c1, rook c8 can be an idea. Black's just barely there trying to hold it together, defending the bishop, but this is not a stable post. Immediately questioned now with a3. Rook takes f2 check, king e3, rook c2 is played here. If there's a check on f3, the king could go to e2 here, and everything is pretty much ready to fall. You cannot hold this together. The try here is with rook c2, and after just one more move, bishop e6, black resigns. This last move supports rook g8 next for mate, and black doesn't have a good response to it. Very good game here by Nodirbek. Your thoughts on this one? Feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.